So, tell me one thing. Do you feel safer in a village like this one, which are pretty much the ones that generate naturally in Minecraft? Or one in which we have worked to make grow and expand? Well yeah, we have here a bunch of villagers with which we can trade, and a lot of space where we can move around, some shelters, and even some golems. Hello, welcome to Big Brother 161. This is the 5th episode on our series of villagers and villages, and today we will see breeding and villager farms. So let's begin. If we do some investigation, we will see there are certain mechanics in which villagers can breed, which consist on 2 adult villagers coming together, like the ones you see back there, and generating a new baby villager. But in order for this activity to happen, certain requisites have to be met. These requisites can be summarized in 4 points. Point number 1, 2 adult villagers have to be in the state of willingness and acknowledge one another. Point number 2, this can only be performed on certain schedule. Point number 3, there must be an available bed that has not been yet claimed by another villager. And point number 4, this can only occur within the limits of a village. But as we saw, creating a village is not difficult, we only need a point of interest and a villager. So let's see these mechanics in action. Here we have created these villages. If we press F3 and G, we're going to see the limits of the chunks. For example, here I have placed a bell and 2 beds, and these villagers have already claimed these beds, so as far as we're concerned, this counts as a village. Here we're going to see the chunk in which this village is contained. And I have placed this red cube over here, just to show off which sub-chunk the village is contained within. So now we're going to see the first rule. First, we have these 2 villagers. And they form part of the village. But the first rule tells us that these villagers have to be in the state of willingness. What does this state of willingness mean? Willingness means that this is a state in which the villager is able to reproduce. And in order to enter this state of willingness, one thing is necessary. They need food. In this chest you see here are contained the 4 items that they recognize as food. These are the items. But one requisite is that they need to have enough. Here you can see in an example what quantity of each of these items they need in order to enter the state of willingness. There must be 3 bread, or 12 beetroot, or 12 potatoes, or 12 carrots. Once the villager picks up these items, it is going to consume them, just to enter the state of willingness. For example, first we're going to try with this 3 bread, and then we're going to place this 3 bread over here. Once they pick it up, we're going to put them in the same area. Here we're going to see they approach one another, they recognize one another, and you're going to see these particle effects where they're trying to reproduce. Because now they are on the willingness state. They are trying to generate a baby villager. But now you're going to see these broken heart particles. So, what happened? Well, this is one of the points we're going to see. The first villager claimed this bed, and the other villager claimed this one. You're going to see 2 villagers and 2 beds, which are already claimed. Without an additional bed, there is no new space where a villager can claim. For that, we need a 3rd bed. Let's try to do this again. Carrots. They take our food. They recognize one another. Particle effects. And voila, a baby villager. Just remember that this food is going to be consumed just to enter the willingness state, even if they fail to produce a baby villager. Let's go to the next point. Here we're going to have this village with an extra bed and the 2 villagers. So now we're going to go to nighttime. In this case, they have enough food, but since it is nighttime, they're going to prioritize being in bed. So by the time being, reproduction is not possible. But now we're going to return to daytime. Hard particle effects means they are in willingness state and are going to try to reproduce. But here, in the process of reproduction, one of the beds gets destroyed. So also, this process gets interrupted. During this short process, the bed must remain in its place. Another thing involving willingness, besides food, is that 20 minutes must have passed since the last time they produced a baby villager. So here we place another bed. But since they already consumed the food they had, they need more food in order to try to reproduce again. So more food, and here we go again. Baby villager. Another point I want to talk about is population cap. In this example we have again 2 villagers and 3 beds. This is the additional bed, and in breeding they are going to try to fill this space if the requisites are met, like the time of the day and having enough food. So first let's give them professions. And we're going to trade a bit with them. After some time, nothing happens. There are a pair of popular myths in which we can replace food with trading, and the other one is that only villagers with professions can reproduce. But as we have seen in these examples, none of these two is necessary. So now we're going to hand them some bread. One of them is going to take them, and as the quantity of bread exceeds 24, he's going to share it. Like you see there, like the other villager has no food. So now breeding can commence. And they even give him some bread. So now this baby villager is going to take 20 minutes before he turns into an adult. And once he is an adult, it is going to be able to also produce baby villagers. Remember that all this breeding can only occur within villages, and since we have certain quantity of beds in order to have a population cap, this already consists of a village. And now we're going to see the fourth case, in which instead of having 3 beds, we're going to have 4. Or 5, or 6. With enough food, what they are going to do is try to produce a baby villager. In this case, the population cap is 6. With a baby villager they're going to have, the population is going to be 3. We're still going to have 3 available beds. And up until 2 of these adult villagers are able to have another baby, they're going to try to fill the 4th bed. And in the next generation, they're going to try to have 2 additional babies, until they cover the population cap of 6. And once they are already 6 villagers, reaching the population cap of 6, they are still going to try to have baby villagers. But since the population cap has already been met, they will be unsuccessful. So, for example, here we're going to have 6 adult villagers. And the population cap is 8, with 8 beds. So in this case, this population can only breed 2 baby villagers. But for example, here we have 3 couples. They are going to try to have 3 baby villagers. So what is going to happen? One of these couples is going to fail. So we give them bread. They're going to share a bit. Here you can see the first baby. The second one. With 6 adults and 2 babies, they already met the population cap of 8. In this case, this village is no longer able to have new babies. In case you're wondering what is an easy way to count population, is at night, when everybody is in his bed. Like in this case, we can clearly see they are 8. So here we can summarize the 4 points that are needed in order to grow population. 1. We need 2 adult villagers in willingness state. For that they need enough food, and 20 minutes must have passed since the last time they have a baby villager. Second point is the time of day, which must be between 6 AM and 6 PM, which correspond to tick 0 and tick 12,000. Point number 3, there must be some unclaimed valid beds. In order for a bed to be valid, a villager must be able to pathfind it. So villagers must be able to get to it. And 2, there must be 2 air blocks just above the bed. Another interesting fact is that the game is only going to recognize this bed on its horizontal coordinates, and the vertical one is not going to count. For example, if we build a village, and the buildings are 2 floors, if a bed is just above another one, the game is not going to be able to recognize neither of them. This is because according to the game they occupy the same coordinates. It does not consider the vertical coordinate, it only considers the horizontal ones. And the first requisite is that reproduction only occurs within the confines of a village. But if we already comply with the first 3 points, that means we already have a village. So now we're going to see all of this in a larger experiment. According to information online, it does not establish a limit of population. So I took these 4 sub-chunks and tried to make an experiment and pack together a lot of beds. So let's go to nighttime and try to count how many villagers are there. Go to sleep, go to sleep. Now they are all aligned. We can count there are 192 beds, all of them occupied. Previously I filled a lot of these with adults. Here you can see the bell, the center of the village. And here you can see the baby villagers, but this population tried to fill up the population cap successfully. So in this case we already have 192 villagers, and the population cap is 192 because of the 192 beds. So let's try to fill again another 96 beds. In this case it's going to be easier to deliver some food. Some of them get up and they're going to share the food. And here you're going to see 96 available beds. The population cap is going to grow. Now they are going to try to fill up the available population spaces. Now let's go to daytime. And the breeding process starts automatically, because all of the prerequisites are met. In a few moments, these baby villagers are going to grow. So in this experiment we're going to try to determine a limit of population. But for all practical purposes, there seems to be none. And remember that these villagers are able to detect available beds 48 blocks of distance. So maybe the limit of the population cap is determined on how many beds we can pack together in a small area? So you tell me. I particularly am having a lag problem, 12 FPS. Maybe the size of the village or what capacity of population you have is depending on the power of your PC. And in case you need even more villagers, I can probably suggest building another village in another place. Let's send everybody to sleep again. As you can see, because of the population, my PC is having problems executing the AI of these villagers. They are claiming the beds, but this is going to take a while. Because at this point there are already more than 200 villagers in this small area. This is a very overpopulated village and clamp up together. Here you can see the sector of the new population and they are already having problems claiming the beds. In my case, I wouldn't build a so overpopulated village. So let's go to another subject. The next thing I want to talk about is about villager breeders, or villager farm, however you like to name them. This is not my own design, but I'm going to explain how it works. So 5 blocks above the ground, you're going to place this fence. Then these 4 trapdoors like this, and over them 4 beds placed in this way. So you just press shift and over the trapdoor you place the bed like this. And go around. In the bottom half of the bed you're going to place a trapdoor like this and another one over it like this. And over the head of the bed, carpets. This is in order for villagers not to escape. And in the moment night turns into day and they get off the bed, they always appear over the fence. And not, for example, over the head of the bed. What I have observed over YouTube is that other players place a different configuration of transparent blocks over the beds, but this combination of trapdoors and carpets has worked very good for me, so we're going to continue with this one. So we're going to build this glass tube, and at the bottom we have this arrangement over here, a dispenser with minecarts, 3 power rails like this. Remember that this one we can waterlog. When the villager drops down, he doesn't hurt himself. In this case this baby villager already grew to an adult. We just press this button and the minecart takes him away. Here we can see the breeder in action, so we take away this villager and we can use him later for whatever purpose we want. So in this arrangement you're going to see there are 4 beds and only 2 villagers. And maybe the only reason they are not breeding is because they have no food left. Let's give them some bread and the process begins. There's the baby villager. And in this case, since already 3 beds are occupied, maybe they will have later on another baby villager. Maybe if we allowed for this tube to fill up with villagers, reaching the population cap and they will stop to breed, so we must take them away. it is quite important for them to be taken away as soon as they appear. Like this. This space is free of, and once 20 minutes has passed since the last time they have a baby villager, they may be able to have another one. Of course, always remember to hand them enough food for the next breeding. Now here we have another breeder. And how you bring your own villagers, well, I leave that to you. So here we have your villagers, and just remember to not have an additional block beside the bed, for when they get up at the morning, they don't appear there. So the only valid place they get off is that fence. So let's get them some bread. A baby villager, here it is. Press the button and the minecart takes him away. Again. Of course I always recommend to place a bell, and about 4 blocks over the heads of the villagers, let's place a roof. This is in order to avoid them turning into witches in case of a lightning striking the place. And finally, this is my own design for a villager breeder. This is the one I use actually. This is considered technically a village. Here is the bell, 2 beds, the population cap is 2, and here are 2 villagers. One way to do this is placing this trapdoor over here on the floor, another one over here, and leaving a 1 block gap over here. So this is a place that is only high enough for a baby villager to pass. So now they acknowledge one another. Let's give them some food. Particles. Baby villager. There he is. Maybe one advantage of the previous one, which is pretty much the one everybody uses, is that the wood fence leaves only enough space for the baby villager to drop down. But in this case, the baby villager has to pass through this 1 block gap over here. But remember, they can only have a baby villager each 20 minutes, which pretty much is 1 day in Minecraft. Let's go to nighttime. Baby villager is going to try to reach his bed, and anyway he's going to drop down. Again, we can send him away. Remember that these breeders can only produce 1 baby each 20 minutes, and in this case the player has to provide the food for breeding, or at least give them access to a plantation where they can obtain food. Of course, in the latter case, one of these villagers will have to be a farmer, and he could provide food for the other one. In my personal case, I'm not an advocate of villager breeders, so now I'm going to show you another option we have. I want to show you the main theme of all this series. And in this case I'm going to show you how to build functional and useful villages. Remember that villager breeders can only produce 1 baby each 20 minutes, and that is pretty much the rate forever. The advantage of villages is that they have a multiplayer effect, because in a village, each baby is eventually going to turn into an adult, enabling them to reproduce now. And if some of the villagers are farmers, they can provide food for the entire village, without needing the help of the player. So first I want to show you this area we have, which is 25 chunks. I marked them out just to show you the size of this area. 5 by 5 chunks, or 80 blocks in each side. Here we're going to build some buildings, and I'm going to show you 4 types just for this example. Building number 1 is going to be the main one, the plaza. Remember that in mid-afternoon is gossip time, and at around this hour the entire village is going to reunite on the center of the village and start the gossip. The center of the village is going to be marked by this bell. Building number 2 is going to be the farm. Some of the villagers are going to recognize this workstation, the composter, and they're going to turn into farmers. They are going to harvest these crops and provide food for the rest of the village. This is going to enable breeding, and the village is going to try to fill its own population cap. Building number 3 is the house, and its only purpose is to allocate beds and provide shelter for the villagers. Just remember that the number of beds is going to determine the population cap of the village. And in case of this building, there are 6 beds. And for this example, we're going to build a village, blacksmiths. So village number 4 is a foundry. So this building contains 6 workstations, 2 blast furnaces, 2 grindstones, and the 2 smithing tables. And since it contains 6 working stations, it is going to provide jobs for the 6 villagers living in one house. So we can practically build one of these buildings for each house. In case of the farm, this provides jobs for only 4 villagers. So we need 3 farms or 12 jobs for 2 houses, because they do contain 12 beds. So for this tutorial, for not to be too long, we're going to use these structure blocks. So tell me in the comments if you ever want me to make a video explaining how these structure blocks work. Once we have these blocks, the first step is going to be this one. Now we're going to go to the center of the village and place our plaza over here. Let's load it there. So now maybe the second step for building a village may be where you're going to place the main paths or roads. Let's mark them, and here you can see how you have placed 4 main roads going across from the plaza: north, south, east, and west. Just maybe remember not to build these roads in a so complicated manner, because they may interfere with the villager pathfinding. If we build our village in a way it resembles a labyrinth, remember that the AI has its limits, and villagers might get lost or get stuck in some place. The next step is maybe placing our first house. So let's place it over here. Let's load and there. Maybe one thing we can do is, now that we have our first house, is bring our first villagers. Once they're in, we can block this door for them not to get out. Like this. Here we have our first 4 villagers. And set them free. Next they're going to claim their beds. And since there are 6, we're going to give them the first food. We're going to share a bit, acknowledge one another, and here we see the first particle effects. And now they're going to breed their first 2 baby villagers. While we continue to build our village, we're going to leave them there. We come here and maybe place the second house, because they're going to continue to reproduce. We can leave this alley over here. Maybe let's build another 2 houses over here. Now if we count correctly, we have 24 beds over here. So here we have a potential population cap of 24. Next, maybe we can start building the farms. We have to take into account to have the appropriate quantity of jobs for the already quantity of villagers. And of course we have to feed them, so let's build the first farms. In the case of these 2 houses, we have 12 beds, so let's build the farms over here. So let's build 3 farms, because they give off 12 jobs for the 12 villagers living in these 2 houses. So let's place it here, and another one here. There. And since we have our first villagers in the first houses, let's start to close off this area. For example, this street. So we're going to close off this small area inside the village for them just to start breeding. We have this small controlled area. Here they will be safe and start to breed. Maybe they're going to need a few more carrots. First thing, they're going to get out of the house and start to recognize there are more beds in the other houses. So in this exclusion zone, which is quite small, but they are now recognizing there is a population cap of 24 because of the 24 beds. And while they continue to breed and try to fill the population cap, we're going to continue and build the rest of the village. Let's come over here and build a few more houses. So we have 24 beds over here and another 24 over here. And now we're going to continue and provide jobs. And likewise this previous case, now we're going to build maybe a few more farms here to give jobs for these villagers. And maybe behind these houses we're going to build a few foundries to give jobs for these villagers over here. Here we have the first one, the second, and there. We're going to do the same with these 2 houses over here. As you can see here, now we have enough jobs for these 8 houses over here, which are 48 villagers. For each 4 houses, we need 3 farms and 2 foundries. We still have a few more spaces for here. We can build maybe a few more houses, but remember always to provide enough jobs for all the villagers. As long as this case goes, we have built already a village for 48 villagers. So maybe let's place a house here, and beside it, a foundry for the jobs for these villagers. Now we can come over here, house, foundry. Let's go to the other side. Here we place a house, maybe another foundry, and we can do the same with the other side, like that. So now let's return to the exclusion zone. I recommend to come at night because all of them are going to be in bed, and it is easier to count how many villagers are over here. On the first house we see 6, some of them are going to still wander around. Here we have 6, here almost, but I see 2 of them wandering around over here. And here we can see some empty beds. We may have to wait a little. Once all of the beds are filled up, we can open this exclusion zone and they will start to populate the rest of the village. Let's open over here so they can occupy the farms. They start to wander around, they come to composters, and some of them already turn into farmers. Remember that this is a very important job because they are going to feed the rest of the village. Remember that this village is going to be consisting of blacksmiths because that is what we are intending to trade. But it doesn't matter which kind of village you want to trade. Almost all of a village must contain farmers. And if they have some food in their inventory, when it is job time, they are going to start to plant the first crops. Of course, we can do this ourselves, but if you give them enough food, they are going to start to plant on their own. And finally our village looks like this. Of course, we can still see some of free space over here, but you can do with it what you want. In the village, as time passes, the population is going to grow. And of course, a big village is a strong village. Don't forget gossip time. At this time, we're going to see all of the villagers reunited together. And of course, remove all the temporary barriers we have placed previously. It is only a matter of time before the first iron golems start to spawn. They're going to acknowledge the bell, and like that. They start to plant and harvest, they take on jobs, they start to breed, and the population grows and grows. And as you can see here, we see a bunch of blacksmiths and some farmers, which are essential for an autonomous village. Here we can see a weaponsmith, here we can see a toolsmith. Now, maybe in a future video I can show you with more detail how to build a proper village and how to make it bigger. But for our next episode, besides explaining how to grow village and how to build them, I want to talk about a particular subject, the villager inventory. How to manage it and how to use it, because this can be very beneficial for the player. Until next time.